tying up another Thunder Creek streamer today. This is called the Smallmouth Bass. Keith Fulsher came up with these patterns way back in the 1960s, and they're just very interesting flies to tie with the folded back bucktail in them. There's a number of different patterns. The most basic one, like an emerald shiner, just has a little bit of flash under it and that's it. But he has a number of them where he's added other underbody materials, in this case some barred ginger hackles, to represent particular bait fish. So in his book, he's got a whole bunch of different ones to represent different bait fish. This is basically to represent a juvenile smallmouth bass. Only downside on this, I'm using some Solarez on this, which is a UV curing material instead of epoxy, just to make it a little bit quicker and show you that you can use that instead of the epoxy. But these flat stick-on eyes, they're just a little too big. They're 1/8 diameter, and they tend to fold out as that Solarez, or I should say as the top coating of Solarez is curing on it. So they don't look all that great right here. But I'll try on the next one, which is going to be a largemouth bass, I'll try some smaller eyes if I have some. So that is a smallmouth bass Thunder Creek streamer. I'll get started tying. Start the smallmouth Thunder Creek with my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad R75S. It's a straight eyed hook. It's about a 5X long hook on this. I'm going to debarb the hook. I'm going to attach my thread. The thread I'm using is 70 Denier Danville in white. I'm going to attach the thread right behind the eye of the hook, and I'm going to advance the thread down the hook shank, maybe an eye length, 1.5 eye lengths, because then I'm going to tie in the first material. The first material is some root beer crystal flash. I'm using some root beer flash accent for this. I'm only getting about 4 strands. I'm going to bring those up under the thread, keep advancing my thread down the hook shank, fold over all of that crystal flash, keeping it on top of the hook shank. I'm going to advance my thread down to what will end up being the end of the head space, which is about 1/3 of the way down the hook shank here. I'm going to trim the crystal flash so it's past the bend of the hook, maybe about 1/4 of a shank. Then I'm going to tie in the next material. The next material is barred ginger hackles. I've got a couple of these are smaller hackles off of a dry fly neck. What you're going to do is you're going to take these 2 hackles and you're going to match them together like this, concave to concave, so that they flatten out. Get those tips even. And then you're going to strip away the fluff on the ends here. Trim that away. Then we're going to hold this up and measure it. We want the tips to go about the same length as the crystal flash. So I'll strip away a few more barbs, remeasure it to check. Take off a few more, remeasure it. If it's a little bit longer, that's fine. Ultimately, our bucktail is going to be about the same length as this hackle. This just gives the fly that kind of brownish color underneath it that smallmouth have, plus the barring on it makes it look like the modeling or even the barring that some smallmouth have. We'll measure that again. That's just about right. We're going to set this up on top of the hook shank. We want to tie that in so it's as vertical as possible. So you're going to tie that in with a couple of loose wraps. And then you can usually push around the hackles a little bit. You can manipulate them just a little bit so that we're getting that tied in. See how it spread out there? That's not what we're looking for. Now, it may end up doing that when in the course of fishing it, but right now we want to just have those tied up there. And I don't want to advance down the hook shank with that. We just want to have that tied up there so that they're just side by side. You could glue those in a little bit if you want. You could even, when I think about it, you could even tie those in one at a time so that they're even down the sides just a little bit. These hackles can get a little bit fiddly sometimes. I'm going to put some more wax on my thread. Bring these together. They went in a little bit easier when they were together than apart. Wrap those up the hook shank a little bit. See what we got. That's good enough. Like I said, these will push down a little bit. They're going to flow around in the water and kind of get messed up, so that's fine. I'm going to advance my thread right up to behind the eye of the hook. And I'm going to tie in the green bucktail. I've already cut some of the green bucktail out. I'm using the bucktail from the lower portion of the tail. I've already cleaned that out and stacked it. Remember, your Thunder Creeks are very sparse when it comes to the bucktail. You do not want them real thick. We want more of a slender head on these than we do like a bulbous round head. Holding the tips right behind the eye of the hook, I want to measure off the end of that hackle there. That's going to be my tie-in spot. Maybe just a little bit longer. Now when you tie this in here, I'm just wrapping this in a little bit, and I'm getting a little tighter as I wrap down the hook shank. The reason is I don't want that hair right behind the eye here to flare out. I just want it to stay more or less together. You can wet the hair. Keith Fulsher recommends having a little dish of water right there and wetting the hair. This helps to control it so it doesn't get mixed in with the belly hair in a little bit. Now again, I'm wrapping a little tighter as I go down the hook shank here to trim away the excess. I'm going to secure those butt ends in. Tidy this up just a little bit and come all the way back up to right behind the eye of the hook. Again, moisten your fingers to control that. I'm going to turn the fly over, and now I'm going to put in the white. The white bucktail, fortunately, we want to tie that in so it's the same length as the green, or maybe just a little bit shorter. We're going to wrap that in the same way. Some gentle wraps to collect it right here. keeping it on the bottom of the hook shank. And then as I'm working down, I'm going to tighten that up a little bit to really secure that in. I want to come back up. I don't know if you noticed that those thread wraps kind of slipped down that bucktail a little bit. So I'm coming back down here to collect this right behind the eye. Again, moistening my fingers. Take your time to keep the white and the green separate. You do want to make certain you get that tied in, both of them right behind the eye, so when we fold it back, it's pretty much the head's nice and even. We don't want the white to be like folded back here and the green right up here. I'm going to trim away the excess white. Some wax on my thread. I'm going to secure the butt ends of that white in, working my way back down to the end of the head here. Since I have it turned this way, the first one I'm going to tie in is the white. Collecting all of the white hair. I want to keep those together, and I'm kind of stroking and pulling those out so that they all stay under some tension. And I'm going to fold this down. Don't stab the hook. As you can see, my white's just a little bit behind where the green's tied in. So I can remedy that right here by going back up and tying in the white just a little bit more forward. Just get a wrap or two on the white. Actually on the white and green because it's going around both of them. But I just want to get a wrap or two right up on here so that that white and green are tied in forward all the way up the same place. It almost went under the hair. Sometimes this bucktail, even when you wet it down, just doesn't, it wants to flare out on you. Just take your time with it. No big rush. We just want to get that white and green even. That should do it. Get my thread back down to the end of the head space. Careful not to get any of the green in here. Now I'm pulling that hair rearward while at the same time my fingers are kind of pinching it and trying to push that hair down around the hook shank to cover up along both sides. Get a few wraps in to secure that. Turn this over, do the same with the green. I'm going to pull that back here. I'm actually pinching and pulling rearward. Get a couple of wraps in, push that hair down. That way it will hopefully cover. You do see some white under there, but that's okay. Most of it's covered. And then a few wraps to secure it. And then I'm going to put a couple of just light wraps behind to kind of keep that hair from flaring out. Hair should have been a little bit longer, or that wing just a little bit shorter, but I think it'll be fine. Now I'll do a whip finish right on that white band. I'm not going to put any head cement on it because in a second I'm going to put some Solarez on it. The original Thunder Creeks, Keith Fulsher liked to use epoxy on the heads. And I'm going to do that in some subsequent videos here. But right now, I'm just going to use some Solarez because I did on the Emerald Shiner, I used a 5-minute epoxy. Solarez is a little bit quicker, and the Solarez, I can then get the eyes and everything on a little bit quicker. So rather than put my throat on this right here, I'm going to go ahead and just coat this with some Solarez. Hit that with the UV light. Okay, I think my whip finish is coming undone. There we go. Probably should have put some wax on that. So you want to make certain that this is thin. You don't want this super thick. Again, we're not trying to make a large bulbous head on this. What we're doing here is it's going to help protect that bucktail, but it's also going to give us a foundation for painting on some eyes. Well, I should say Keith Fulsher would paint on the eyes with some enamel paint, which I will be doing, but for the sake of the brevity of this video, I'm just going to put some stick-on eyes on here. But we still need to have that foundation. The eyes won't stay on the hair itself. Certainly wouldn't while you're fishing it. Doesn't look all that great. So we're going to put some Solarez on here. This is just a UV curing, not epoxy, but material. Let that, you have plenty of working time here. So let that kind of thin out and distribute itself. You're going to put it all the way back to the back of the thread wraps here. So we're covering all of that. Once you have it in place and you're comfortable with it, I like to initially kind of pull the hairs together so that around those thread wraps, that Solarez that got in on the hair will kind of secure it so it's in a more lateral position. It's not flared out. Now I use the Solarez also because this cures nice and clear and tack free. There's no tack to that or anything. So now I can put some lacquer. I'm going to use some red lacquer here for the throat, which is just a little bit on the underside of those thread wraps. We're just going to put just a little bit of lacquer. That's almost too much right there. Right under here on the underside of these thread wraps. We're just going to paint those. As I said, he generally uses an enamel, which I will be using. But when I do that, I'm also going to use the epoxy. I want to have a little bit more information on what the cure time for the epoxy is and the enamel. That way you know what you're getting yourself into, because as you can see right here, you can do this and it doesn't take that long. So I'm using some stick-on eyes. I got a 1/8 silver stick-on eyes here. You could use something else if you wanted white, or even the smallmouth. I thought about doing this with some red eyes and a black pupil because they have red eyes. But I'm just going to put that stick-on eye right on the side there. Generally, that's just halfway down. Be careful not to pinch your lacquer there. Get that to kind of wrap around a little bit. Then we're going to put a little bit more Solarez just over the eyes. You want to try and get this in so it's nice and even with the other eye, same side. Didn't come off. This is the one downside to these eyes, is they tend to want to flatten out. And we got kind of a roundish head here. So I'm just going to kind of push on those a little bit to see if I can't get that adhesive to stick just long enough for me to get a little bit more Solarez on this. And as I said, the Solarez just goes on the eyes themselves. You're not wanting to build up the head here, so we're just going to put some Solarez on the eyes. Keith Fulsher does this with the epoxy as well, and what he found is that it also kind of magnifies the eyes just a little bit when he does this. Probably have too much on there. Use just a dry spot on the toothpick to get off any excess that you might have. I'm pushing down on the edges of that as well. Then I will hit that again with the light. I've got the bottom edges, you can see, just kind of flipped out a little bit there. Maybe a little zap-a-gap or something under there. I need to get some 3/32 eyes on these. Yeah, that's solid now. So unfortunately, as you can see, they came unwrapped, and I was afraid of that with that Solarez. I think it just lightened it up and it came unwrapped. Still fishable. One of the things Keith Fulsher noted was that as he got older, when he painted the eyes on, he would paint with the white enamel first and then come back and put the black pupils in. And as he got older, the black pupils didn't look quite as good as they did when he was younger. But he said the fish didn't seem to mind. So there is a Thunder Creek smallmouth. Again, very simple flies with the folded bucktail. You can do various underbodies or things underneath the bucktail to help mimic other bait fish. Next week I'll be doing a largemouth Thunder Creek, and you'll see it has a same head, same green and white belly, but just has a different body to it. So thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vise today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. And what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.